Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins. No B. Scott this week. He is not feeling too well, so B. Scott, get well soon. It's one of the best times of the year. It's finally upon us. The IHSAA Boys Basketball State Tournament. It begins this week. Today's episode, we're going to discuss all 64 sectionals. So you saw us do it last year on the Hoosier High School Huddle. You saw us do, I think we did a variation of it during the football season. Of course, we did it before what was an insanely entertaining girls basketball tournament, and that is 64 sectionals in 64 minutes. Probably going to be under the time since it's just me tonight. But we're going to be dissecting all 64 sectionals, saying who we think is going to advance, as well as predicting who is going to win in each class, who we think is going to be cutting down the nets come March at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It's going to be hard to top what the girls' tournament was. B. Scott and I said, we touched on a little bit last week as well in the state finals prediction show. But a lot of times, in the girls' tournaments, it's a little bit more chalk than maybe the other side of the coin. But having all the different matchups, 3 7 seeds were there, a 6 seed was there, an unranked team was there. All those games were great games. It's going to be hard to top it, but that's what the boys tournament is going to try to do this week. And we'll see what happens. I remember, last year, there were certain teams we thought would get to Gainbridge, and some of those teams made it, and some of those teams didn't. It's going to be a wild ride. Like I said, it's going to be hard to duplicate what the women did. But let's see, if we can find any teams that we think are going to break out. Like I said before, we're going to go through all 64 sectionals. We're going to say who. Well, I'm going to say, I keep saying we because I'm used to it, but I'm going to say who I think is going to win each sectional, and then at the end of each class, I'm going to predict who I think is going to win the state tournament in each class. So let's get right into it. Before we do, though, I do want to make mention that you know your team better than I do, better than B. Scott does. So if we miss something or we gloss over your team and you think there's something we need to know, definitely let us know, because if your team ends up in the state finals, it's going to be something that we're going to want to circle back on. So none of it's done maliciously. It's just there are 64 sectionals. A lot of them have 5, 6, 7, however many teams. So we just kind of try to get the base knowledge and then distribute that to you guys. So let's go ahead and hop right in. We're going to get started with 4A and sectional 1. And we're going to get things going hot here. Right off the bat, we lead off with a highlighted sectional, because the winner of this sectional is going to be whoever wins between Munster and Hammond Central, because you have a pair of top 8 teams in 4A here. Number 3, Hammond Central, is 22-1. Number 8, Munster, is 22-2, and they will likely square off in the sectional championship. Munster is the home team. They have a top 25 scorer in the state in Brandon Trilly. He averages 21 points per game and is top 8 in 4A. Munster was the last team from Indiana to beat Hammond Central, and I wanted so badly to pick Munster here. I'm probably going to kick myself that I don't go with Munster here, but especially because that win over Hammond Central last year was in sectional play. But I'm going with Hammond Central. I did switch up my pick from, I originally leaned Munster, but I just couldn't ignore what Hammond Central has. They have a slightly better offense, averaging 68 points per game compared to Munster's 64 points per game. They're 18th in the state compared to 37th. Plus, there's something about beating teams out of state that just adds an extra flavor to your resume. And Hammond Central's 8-1 out of state this season. We see it a lot of times in football. We see it a lot of times in basketball. There's just something. It doesn't matter if the team from the other state is any good. It just looks cooler and feels a little bit more strong when you see that. You see the school that they beat, and then you see an IL or an OH or a KY next to their name. Because when you play teams from out of state, generally it's a pretty good matchup. So I'm going Hammond Central here right out of the gate. I wanted to go Munster, but we'll go Hammond Central there. Sectional 2, the Crown Point Sectional. Chesterton is the team I'm going with. They're 5-0 versus Sectional 2 opponents, including blowouts versus Portage and Crown Point, the two best teams record-wise in the bracket besides them. Crown Point and Portage will play on Tuesday, so it's not as if Chesterton will have to go through both of them. They'll only have to go through one of them, so I'm going with Chesterton. Sectional 3, the LaPorte Sectional. I'm going Michigan City here. It's a toss-up. You have three teams with 16-plus wins. Michigan City, with a win, will play LaPorte. There's two of those teams. There's two of those 16-plus win teams. And then the winner will likely play Mishawaka in the championship. That's the other 16-plus win team. But I'm going with Michigan City. They have the 12th best offense in the state, 4th in 4A. They average 69 points per game. Jamie Hodges Jr. averages 22 points per game, which is good enough to be top 20 in the state, 6th in 4A. There is a little bit of an asterisk next to that because MaxPreps only has 12 games for Michigan City, which is not MaxPreps' fault. It's whoever uploads the stats to MaxPreps. But when that and John Harrell, we live by that here at the Crash Course Podcast and 3C Media. So if it's not in there, it makes you a little bit more timid about going with certain teams. But what I've seen, and I also looked up, make sure Jamie Hodges had still kept up that scoring, and he has. So did some digging, and he's still crushing it. So I think Michigan City wins Sectional 3. Sectional 4, it's the Elkhart Sectional. I'm going easily here. Number 2 Penn. They're 23-1. The number 4 team in the state, according to MaxPreps. Marcus Burton is a Notre Dame commit. He's first in the state in scoring, averaging 31 points per game. The Kingsmen average 79 points per game, best in the state. They also have the best margin of victory, beating teams by 32 points on average. Has them second place in 4A. Second place in 4A. Beats teams by an average of 18 points. So they're head and shoulders above their competition. And, it reminds me a lot. I know South Bend, Washington didn't end up making the state finals in girls basketball, but it kind of reminds me of their outlook going in. And if not for an injury, who knows what they would have been able to do come tournament time. So it's easily number 2 Penn here. I think they easily win that sectional. Sectional 5, Carroll Fort Wayne. This is the first time tonight you'll hear it. Give me the home team. There's a bunch of 500 teams here, so home court rules. Carroll Fort Wayne wins that sectional on their home court. Sectional 6, it's the Columbia City sectional. Give me Homestead. Fort Wayne and Homestead are both likely going to play in the sectional championship. They're both 17-win teams. Fort Wayne got the 4-point overtime win in February 7th, on February 7th, so I'll just fade that result. So give me Homestead there. Sectional 7, the Kokomo sectional. Give me number 5, Kokomo, the home team. They're 8th in the state. They have Flory Badunga, who, led this team to, I believe it was semi-state last year, losing to Chesterton. Badunga is 13th in scoring in 4A, 20 points per game is what he averages, which is top 50 in the state. Like I said, they made it deep last season, and they're also convincing 5-0 against Sectional 7 teams, so Wildcats all the way. Sectional 8, it's the Carmel sectional. I'm a little disappointed in this one, only because last year, Sectional 8, that was the sectional. You had Carmel, who always, is good. You have Westfield, who at the time, was just getting Braden Smith back, so they were kind of the X factor. They actually went deep in that sectional, which was cool to see. They, so not as much shine on this sectional this year. I am going to go with the home team, number 12, Carmel. They're number 5 in the state, according to MaxPreps. Shows how much the AP and MaxPreps talk to each other there. Give me the home team with the Belmont commit, Sam Orme. I think he's going to have a good sectional tournament, so give me Carmel there. Sectional 9. This is, I think, of the sectionals that I highlighted in 4A, I think this one by far is going to be, the best. I think it's the best sectional in Class 4A. It's the second highlighted sectional of the night. You have number 10 Greenfield, which is 21-1. You have number 11 New Powell, which is 21-2, and you have number 13 Anderson, who's 19-4. Anderson will play Greenfield Central on Wednesday, you have a couple of top 50 scores in the state. You have 16th Amir Carson from Anderson. He averages 22 points per game. He's 5th in 4A. You have Dylan Miles, who's 31st. He's from Greenfield, averaging 20 points per game, which is 10th in 4A. I do think Wednesday's game decides it. I'm giving Anderson the slight edge here. Greenfield has the 16th ranked defense in the state, allowing 43 points per game, but I think Anderson is good enough defensively, and I don't think Greenfield Central on the other end of things can keep up offensively. So I'm giving the slight edge to Anderson here. I know I picked him to go deep in last year's tournament, so that probably doesn't bode well for what they did, because they did not end up, I think, making it out of that sectional. But I'm going Anderson here. I think they win what will be a tough Sectional 9. Sectional 10, that's the Warren Central Sectional. I'm going with number 7, Cathedral. They're the defending 4A champs. They have the number 1 college hoops recruit in the state of Indiana in Xavier Booker. He's headed to play for Tom Izzo in East Lansing. He averages 15 points per game, 8 rebounds. He is ranked Cathedral is ranked number 3 in the state by MaxPreps. So easily going with Cathedral here. Sectional number 11, the Perry Meridian Sectional. Give me number 1, Ben Davis. They're undefeated. They're 26-0, number 1 in the class and the state. They average 65 points per game. That'd be pretty wild if they average 15 points a game and were undefeated. They're 11th in 4A in that category. They're beating teams by 18 points per game, which is 4th in 4A. Like the Penn sectional outlook, they're head and shoulders above their sectional competition, so easily go with the number 1 Giants here. Sectional 12, the Plainfield Sectional. I'm going with number 6, Brownsburg. They're 18-4 on the season. They're 2nd in Indiana, according to MaxPreps, 6th in 4A. They beat Plainfield their biggest competition, by 15 in January. So a lot of times when those matchups are relatively recent and a convincing win for one of the teams, I'm going with the team that won convincingly. So give me the Bulldogs. Sectional 13. I think it was Brownsburg, by the way, was 2nd Indiana. According to MaxPreps, but they were the ranked 6th best team. I got a little confused on that way I read that, and I was like, wait, I might want to double back. So anyway, moving on. Sectional 13, the Center Grove Sectional. They are the 4th ranked team in 4A. Give me Center Grove, who is number 9 in the state according to MaxPreps. How do you not go with the 20-2 team playing at home? So go Trojans there. Sectional 14, Columbus North. Going with the home team, only team above 500 in Sectional 14. Shout out Cooper Horn, averages 18 points per game. He was on the All-3C Media team at wide receiver this season. Sectional 15, the Seymour Sectional. I'm going with number 9, Jennings County. They're 20-2, number 9 in 4A. They're top 15 in the state, 5th in 4A in scoring, averaging 69 points per game. Also, they're top 15 in Indiana in average margin of victory, beating teams by 17 points. So go Jennings County. And finally, the final team in 4A, or the final sectional in 4A, Evansville North, and I'm going with, I don't know if this is an upset or not, but give me Evansville Wrights to win that sectional. The way the bracket looks, I think it's going to be Evansville Harrison versus Wrights in the title game. Harrison beat Wrights by 2 earlier this February, so I'll fade that result, plus Isaac Higgs just outside the top 20 in 4A in scoring, averaging 18 points per game. So those are the sectionals in Class 4A. As far as my state final prediction for Class 4A, like the girls' basketball 4A prediction, give me the team that has the highest margin of victory in the state, number 2, Penn. Their only loss is to number 1, undefeated Ben Davis by 12 in December. And I know a lot of times, I would look at that and be like, oh, man, they got absolutely drubbed. I just made the mention of how, if you beat a team convincingly, I'm going to probably just, that's in your sectional, I'm going to just assume you're going to win that matchup. But, it's a tough dilemma here, because do you go with the team that's 26-0? They only need to win 5 more games. They've shown you they can win 5 or 6 in a row, 3-4 times over by this point in the season. Or do you go with the fact that, hey, they're probably due? Do we go with another team that's really good? And I just think, there's a lot more going for Penn, as odd as that sounds. Ben Davis, their average margin of victory is drastically lower, and that scares me for Ben Davis as far as, comparatively to Penn. Only beating teams, I think, by 18 points is their average, and Penn beats teams by like 30 plus. So, Penn has the number one offense in the state, as well as, they're the number one offense in the state, Penn is, and I think given another chance of Ben Davis, I think that game goes far differently. So I'm going with Penn to win the 4A title. Moving on to Class 3A. Sectional 17, it's the Hanover Central Sectional. I'm going with number 8, Lake Station. They're 19-3 on the season. It's between Lake Station and Hanover Central. Lake has the better offense. They're ranked 15th in the state, 4th in 3A, averaging 69 points per game. Hanover Central has the better defense, ranked 21st in the state, 6th in 3A, allowing 44 points per game. But Lake Station has a pair of scorers just outside the top 20 in 3A, and that's why I give them the edge. Armani Gonzalez and Willie Miller both average 18 points per game. So give me Lake Station there. Sectional 18, the Knox Sectional. I'm going with number 11, Tippecanoe Valley. They're 18-5 this season, and they've handled their opposition within their sectional, so easy choice there with Tippecanoe Valley. Sectional 19, the Jimtown Sectional. The top, you've got two top 7 teams here. Number 2, Mishawaka Marion, and number 7, South Bend, Washington. And I think Mishawaka Marion's got this one. They're 22-2. They're ranked number 17 in the state according to MaxPreps. They fell just short in the 3A title game last season versus Beech Grove, and I remember Deaglin Sullivan was a big part of that team. He's 11th this team is 11th in 3A in scoring. They're top 50 in the state, averaging 19 points per game. Deaglin Sullivan is. So I think Mishawaka Marion wins sectional 19. Sectional 20, the Northwood Sectional. That's the first highlighted sectional in 3A. You have two top 6 teams here. Number 1, Northwood, 21-2. Number 6, West Noble, 20-3. I have noticed that a lot of these sectionals, because what constitutes a highlighted sectional for me is, do you have at least 3 ranked teams, or do you have 2, top 5, top 6 teams? And what I've noticed is, and it's a good thing, is a lot of these brackets, the distribution between the talent and the top talent in these classes has been pretty well distributed. So that's why there's only really about 1 or 2 highlighted sectionals I have per class, because the top teams are distributed well throughout the course of the bracket. But I am, however, going to take the top team in 3A here, Northwood. They're number 11 in Indiana, according to MaxPreps. They have the top defense in the state, allowing 36 points per game. They beat teams by an average of 22 points, which is the best in 3A, 5th in Indiana. Northwood just beat West Noble in a close game earlier this season, and as much as I would like to fade that result, pick the upset, they're at home here, and I think that gives them, I think that kind of reverses that other edge that they might have had, so or that West Noble might have had. So give me the Panthers here. I pick Northwood to win their sectional on their home court. Sectional 21, the Garrett Sectional. I'm going with number 15, Fort Wayne Concordia. It's really tough, though, between them and Woodland. Concordia is 16-6. Woodland is 18-5. I'm going with Concordia, though, because the Cadets have played 11 games versus 4A teams, 8-3 in those games. That Fort Wayne gauntlet that all the Fort Wayne teams have to play against each other is always tough. All the Fort Wayne teams seem to be, if they're not good record-wise, they're still a tough team to play. Woodland just played one 4A team this season, so I'm going with the tougher schedule, the more battle-tested team. Give me the Cadets of Fort Wayne Concordia. In Sectional 22, the Frankfort Sectional, it's going to be the winner of Rensselaer Central, who's 18-5, versus Benton Central, who's 16-7. They'll likely play in the semifinals. Those two have played twice this season. Benton Central won by 2 in overtime in December. Rensselaer Central won by 6 in February. Rensselaer Central is a bucket away from the sweep. So give me the Bombers here. Go Rensselaer Central. I think they win that sectional there. Sectional 23, that gives us our second highlighted sectional in 3A. We've had a few brackets with 2 top 10 teams, but this will be our first bracket with two top 5 teams. You have number 3 Norwell, who's 20-3, versus number 5 and number 5 Oak Hill, who's 20-2. It's kind of similar to what I said. The difference between Concordia and Woodland. Norwell is 20-3, having played the bulk of their schedule against 4A. They're 10-2 in those games. Just one such game for Oak Hill. So going again with a more battle-tested team, give me Norwell there in Sectional 23. Sectional 24, it's the Newcastle sectional. I'm going with Yorktown here. They made a little bit of a run last year, and they weren't as good of a team as they are this year. So I think they make a good run again this year. They handled their business against Sectional 24 opponents. They do have a top 20 scorer in 3A and A.J. Dunn, who averages 18 points per game. So give me Yorktown there. Sectional 25, the Danville sectional. Give me Lebanon. Both they and host Danville are 15-win teams. As much as I want to go with the home team here, Lebanon won by 17 in the regular season matchup. And you know what, Danville? I didn't pick you in football, and you went deep there too, so it's probably a blessing in disguise that I didn't pick you to win in this sectional. Sectional 26, it's the Northview sectional. I'm going with Indian Creek. Why? Because they're the only team above 500 in the bracket. We have a few of those over the course of tonight's podcast. In Sectional 27, it's the Indianapolis Shortridge bracket. Give me number 14, Garin Catholic. I'm going with Garin here because the three teams above 500 in this bracket, they have the hot hand. Number 12, Brebeuf and Chittard are both stumbling going into the tournament. Garin has won 3 straight, so a lot of times you got to go with the hot hand. You got to get with the team that's getting hot at the right time. Give me number 14, Garin. Sectional 28, it's the Crystal House Manual sectional, and give me Purdue Poly Inglewood. I'm going with Purdue Poly here. I know Beech Grove is the defending 3A champs, so number 13 in 3A. They're 14-6 and in this bracket. But Purdue Poly is 17-6 with the second best offense in the class, 6th in the state, averaging 70 points per game. I mean, they're just so good. They're so tough. I'm going with Purdue Poly. It's tough to go against the defending 3A champs, but I got to do it here. Give me Purdue Poly. In Sectional 29, in the Greensburg sectional, I've got number 4, Connorsville. I really wanted to go Greensburg here, though. They did lose by just 3 to Connorsville in January. They're the home team. But the 18-4 Spartans have the second best defense in 3A, 8th in the state, allowing 41 points per game. Although, look out for Lawrenceburg. They're another 18-win team in the same bracket. They're right there behind Connorsville, 3rd defensively in 3A, but I'm giving Connorsville the slight edge here. In Sectional 30, it's the Charlestown sectional. I'm going with number 10, Scottsburg. They're 17-5, 5-1 versus Sectional 30 opponents. All 5 wins coming by 20-plus points, so give me Scottsburg there. Sectional 31, it's the Washington sectional, and I'm actually not going to go with number 9, North Davies. They're 20-5, but they've played a bulk of their games, 18 of 25, against 1A and 2A opponents. Why, you might ask? Well, they spent last year, and they're more close to 1A and 2A schools, but also they are the defending 1A champs. So give me Heritage Hills here, who's 15-8, has the best record of any team in the sectional versus 3A opponents, 9-4. I'm going Heritage Hill here. And then finally, final sectional in 3A, sectional 32, the Boonville sectional. There's a lot of teams milling around 500 here, but I like Evansville Bossy. This 13-10 Bossy team is 10th in the state in scoring, 3rd in 3A, averaging 69 points per game. Teray Howell is 4th in 3A in scoring, averaging 24 points per game. That's good enough for 10th in the state. So give me the Bossy Bulldogs. And so finally, the 3A prediction, and I'm going to go with my second number 2 team, Mishawaka Marion. I was between them or Norwell, but Marion returns 5 of 7 players from that team that played in last year's 3A state final. I think that propels them to a second straight appearance at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and with no Beech Grove team to get in their way, I think they win the title this year. There's too much to love. When you have that tournament experience, you've been there before, and you've got that fire in your stomach from the previous year. Like, hey, they played tough by, they in no way, shape, or form had an embarrassing outing at Gainbridge. They played tough against Beech Grove, but they've got that fire to get back there, and I think they make good on that fire. I think they win the 3A state title. We're going to get into 2A and 1A, but before we do, let's talk about our friends of the show. First of all, from Anchor, the Crash Course Podcast is brought to you by Anchor. Looking to start a podcast but don't know where to start? Look no further than Anchor.fm. Anchor allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or mobile device, and will distribute it to other sites such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. On a budget, not only is Anchor completely free of charge, but will allow you to make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Anchor, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Also, the Crash Course Podcast is brought to you by Eat Lunch and Board Game, heard weekly on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be heard. Board games build bridges. So we've talked about 4A, we've talked about 3A. I picked Penn and Mishawaka Marion as my state champions in those two classes. It's now time to get to the nitty-gritty here, Class 2A and 1A. First, I'm going to take a little sip of water here. Normally, I've got Beast Guy here to allow me to take those water breaks, but got to wet the old whistle and keep soldiering on here. Let's go into Class 2A now. Sectional 33. It's the Whiting sectional. I'm going with number 7, Gary 21st Century. They're 17-5 on the season, second in 2A, fifth in the state in points per game. They average 70 points per contest. Ileana Christian has the same record, but they're far less efficient offensively. I really wanted to go with Ileana Christian, but I'm going to go with Gary 21st Century here. Sectional 34, the North Judson sectional. They're the number 14 in the state. That's the North Judson Blue Jays. They're 20-3. They're playing at home, and the next best team is 14-9 in that bracket. So how do you not go with North Judson there? Sectional 35, the Westview sectional. I'm going Central Noble, the Cougars. It's tough, but I do see the Cougars winning. I could see Westview winning, though. I could see Prairie Heights winning, though. They're all about the same record-wise, but Central Noble is the best offensively and has similar numbers to the rest defensively to give them the slight edge, so give me the Cougars there. Sectional 36, the Rochester sectional. I'm going with Wabash. They've got the best record overall, 16-6 against Class 2A, and against Class 2A, 19-2. They're 26th in the state in scoring, averaging 66 points per game, which is 9th in 2A. Isaac Wright also is 11th in 2A in scoring, averaging 19 points per game. So a lot going for Wabash. I think they win the sectional. Sectional 37, the South Adams sectional. Going with number 4, Fort Wayne Blackhawk. They're 20-3 on the season, 7-1 versus 4A opponents, 5-2 versus 3A opponents. Again, that gauntlet that those Fort Wayne schools have to play against each other is so tough. They're 12-3, playing above their class, 8-0 versus schools in 2A or lower. They're number 18 in the state according to MaxPreps. There's something also about when a 2A or 3A school is ranked among those 4A schools. It just tells you how good they are as far as the state overall ranking. It's pretty cool to see. They are 4th in scoring, Fort Wayne Blackhawk is. They're 7th in the state, averaging 70 points per game. Adams Central deserves a shout-out here. They're the number 12 team in 2A. They're 18-5, but I'm still going Fort Wayne Blackhawk. Sectional 38, the Delphi sectional. Going number 10, Carroll, Florida here. They're 19-4, 6-3 record-wise versus 2A teams, which is by far the best among sectional 38 teams. They're 8th best offensively in 2A, averaging 67 points per game. They're 24th in Indiana in that category. They've got the 4th best margin of victory in the class, 6th in the state, beating teams by 20 points per game. Give me Carroll of Florida. Sectional 39, the Taylor sectional. I'm going Madison Grant here. There are 3 teams with 15-plus wins in this bracket, but I'm taking the Argyles, not number 13 Tipton, as much as I want to go with Tipton. The Argyles are 16-6, boasting the 11th best defense in 2A, or best offense in 2A. They're a top 50 team in the state, averaging 63 points per game. They and Tipton give up about the same defensively, so I'll go with the better statistical offense, Madison Grant. Sectional 40. This is going to be a good one, at least if you want to see Wapahani do a lot of great things, because it's easily Wapahani here. The Monroe Central Sectional, they're going to likely win. They lost their opener to the 4A Muncie Central Bearcats. They lost by 2 in that game and have won 21 straight. They're 21-1. They're the 7th best offense in 2A with 68 points per game. They allow 43 points per game, which is 5th in the class. which gives them an average margin of victory of 25 points, which is first amongst 2A schools. Those numbers are good enough for 21st, 14th, and 2nd in the state, respectively. They're led by 2 top 20 scorers in the class, and Isaac Andrews and Aiden Franks, who both averaged 18 points per contest. I mean, that sectional was already not the strongest, but those numbers for Wapahani just speak volumes. It's easily Wapahani Raiders to the sectional championship there, the number 2 team in 2A. Sectional 41, the Northeastern sectional. The Shenandoah sectional, so you already know who I'm going with. Northeastern. They're the only above 500 team at 18-5, so I'm going with the Knights there. Sectional 42, the Eastern Hancock sectional. This one is sneaky because I think Cecina could potentially make something happen here. This is a grouping of teams that doesn't play each other a lot, and so Cecina having the best record at 3-0 against sectional teams kind of makes you think, oh, they're the most familiar with these opponents. They know how to beat these opponents, so they can potentially knock off Eastern Hancock and the rest of those teams. But that said, I'm going with Eastern Hancock here. They're 18-6, number 11 in the class. They do have a top 50 offense in the state, 13th in 2A, averaging 63 points per game. But I'm most impressed with their defense. They allow 41 points per game, which is 3rd in the class, 6th overall. Gives them an average margin of victory of, which is 3rd in the class. They're top 5 overall, allowing 23 points per game, or beating teams by 23 points per game. So Eastern Hancock made a deep run last year. I think they do it again. Sectional 43, the Cascade sectional. Going with number 5 University here. They're 20-2. Their only losses have come from playing above their class, losing to number 4, the 4A Mount Vernon squad, and number 3A or the 3A Garin Catholic squad. They do have a top 30 scorer in Indiana. As far as Sabian Kane, he's a really good player. He averages 21 points per game, which is good enough for 3rd in the class. So University gets it done in the Cascade sectional. Sectional 44, the Southmont sectional. I'm going Park Heritage here. The Wolves are 6-0 against sectional 44 opponents with an average margin of victory of 16 points per game. So easy to go with Park Heritage here. Sectional 45, the South Ripley sectional. Go with North Decatur. Why? They're the only team above 500 in sectional 45. Here is, if I could, so you know how we've had highlighted sectionals. If I could highlight this sectional 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, I would, because this is by far, I think, I know it's 2A. I know a lot of people like to think, the only matchups that are worthwhile are in, 4A and 3A, but this is by far, I think, the best sectional in the state. Why? You have 5 teams with 16-plus wins, 3 teams with 18-plus wins. You have number 6 Brownstown Central, who's 19-4. They're 7th in the state offensively, 3rd in 2A, averaging 70 points per game. You have number 8 Providence, who's 18-4. They're the defending 2A state champs. They're 3rd in the state defensively, allowing 39 points per game. They're the best in 2A in that category. You have number 9 Southwestern Hanover. They're 20-3, 1st in 2A, 3rd in the class. 3rd in the state offensively, averaging 71 points per game. You also have Henryville and Eastern Pekin, who are both 16-6. And when thinking about who I think is going to win, I'm going with Providence. I'm going with the Pioneers here. And it's not just because of our guy, Providence Trevor. The Pioneers on the season, they average 55 points per game. That is their average. So you think, okay, this team is really, they'll slow you down. They don't score a ton of points. But they scored 71 in a 10-point loss to Brownstown Central on opening night. They beat Southwestern Hanover by 26 in January, scoring 68 points. And I know those are little snippets of their season, but I do think those snippets prove that this team can turn it on offensively when they need to. And they are one of the state's best as far as defense goes. So I'll go defending champs here. Give me Providence. 2 sectionals to go in 2A. Sectional 47, the North Knox sectional. Easily going with number 1, Linton Stockton. They're 23-1 on the season, the number 1 team in 2A. Their one loss was to a team from Kentucky. They are top 10 offensively in Indiana, averaging 69 points per game. They're 5th in 5A. They are led by Joey Hart, who is a UCF commit. They are top 50 in the state defensively as well, which allows them to be 3rd in the state, 2nd behind in 2A behind Wapahani in terms of margin of victory, beating teams by 23. So give me Linton Stockton. And finally, Sectional 48, the Tell City Sectional. Going with number 3, South Spencer. They're 21-1 on the campaign. Everyone else in the bracket is around 500, so easily South Spencer here. So, 2A, the state prediction. It's a toss-up, and I really want to go Wapahani here. It's between them and Linton Stockton. I think I am, though, a little bit jaded still from last year. I picked an ECI team with a long winning streak going into the tournament, put my faith in them going the distance. Monroe Central. So I'm a little hesitant to go Wapahani here. I'm gonna go ahead. You can't, and also Wapahani is another number 2 team, which I can't pick too many of those. It feels weird. So give me the number 1 Linton Stockton Miners. I think they're just so impressive. They've been good all year. Obviously, only one loss on the season, 23-1. So give me Linton Stockton to win the 2A state title. And last, but certainly not least, Class 1A, Sectional 49 is where we're going to kick it off. The Morgan Township Sectional. I'm going with number 5, Morgan Township. They're at home, 18-5, 7-0 versus 1A schools, meaning they're 11-5 playing above their class. Give me the home team, Morgan Township. Sectional 50, the Triton Sectional. I'm going with number 10, Marquette Catholic. You do have Argus, and you do have Westville, who are around the same record-wise and have better defenses. But the 16-7 Blazers average 68 points per game. That's second 1A, 20th in the state. They have 2 top 20 scorers, and when I read their names off, you're going to obviously know why I picked them to win this sectional, because you have a guy named Jason Kobe, who's averaging 19 points per game, and Lucas Balling, who's averaging 18 points per game. So, you have a player named Kobe and a player named Balling. How do you not pick them to go far? So, I'm going with the Marquette Catholic squad. The other 2 teams in that sectional don't come close to where they are offensively, so give me Marquette Catholic. Sectional 51. It's the Hamilton Sectional. I'm going Lakeland Christian here. They're 18-5, allowing 41 points per game. They're third in 1A, 7th in the state in that category. Sectional 52, the West Central Sectional. I'm going with Frontier. Every team is below 500 in this sectional. Frontier and Tri-County are both 10-12. Tri-County won the head-to-head by 2, so I'll fade that result. Those are the ones that are really easy to go with because you're like, oh, well, it was a 2-point game or whatever, so I'll just go the other way with it. Sectional 53, the Southwood Sectional. Give me Southwood. Why? Because, again, every team is below 500, and the Knights are at home, and the only team with 10-plus wins. So go Southwood. Sectional 54, the Fountain Central Sectional. Give me the home team, number 3, Fountain Central. They're 19-4, third-ranked team in 1A. Every other team is below 500. They're a top 15 defense also in the state, allowing 43 points per game. Sectional 55, the Tri-Central Sectional. Give me Liberty Christian here. It's another bracket with mostly under 500 schools. LC is 13-9 with the top 50 offense in the state. They average 63 points per game, so give me Liberty Christian. Sectional 56. The sectional championship will be played literally in game 1 of that bracket, as you have the number 16-5, number 12 Tri team taking on the 17-6 number 11 Blue River Vikings. These 2 teams have met twice this season. In December, Tri won 41-36. In January, Blue River won by 24. Yes, Tri is the home team. That does play a big factor. They beat the Vikings earlier this season on their home court. But I'm going with the most recent, most impressive winner in this series, and that's Blue River. It kind of, with as convincing as that second win was, it makes it look like the first one is the anomaly in that situation, so give me the Blue River Vikings. Sectional 57, the White River Valley Sectional. I really wanted to go the upset here. And pick Bloomington Lighthouse. The Lions are top 20 offensively in the state, first in 1A, and compare statistically to a Bloomfield team that is top 50 in Indiana in that category. And as far as I think, Bloomfield's top 50 in defense. The Lions are comparatively on that same level, but they've lost 4 of their last 5 going into the tournament, 5 of their last 8, which makes me lean towards the team that, by the way, is ranked number 1 in the class for a reason, and that is Bloomfield. They're 21-3. Their only losses have come to Linton twice and North Central, which is still pretty impressive. So it may sound odd, like, oh, why are you not picking the number 1 team in the class? Well, it's because I really want to go Bloomington Lighthouse. I think there's a big chance for an upset there, but give me number 1 Bloomfield there. Sectional 58, the Indiana School for the Deaf sectional. And, I'll take number 5 Bethesda Christian over number 14 Traders Point. Y'all know my heart goes towards Traders Point a lot, and it is really close. Bethesda is 18-4, Traders is 16-6. Bethesda averages 57 points per game. They allow 45 points per contest. Traders averages 59 points per game, and they allow 46 points per game. The Patriots, though, have won 3 straight versus Traders Point, including twice last year, once in the regular season, and the other time in sectional play. Those games have all been close, but I'll give the edge to Bethesda, so give me the Patriots there. Sectional 59, the Indianapolis Lutheran sectional, and I'm going Lutheran here. It is a toss-up between them and number 7 Greenwood Christian. Lutheran is number 8, though. But then the Saints also, they're at home. They lost by 3 to Greenwood Christian earlier in the regular season. Both teams are 8-5, playing above their class. So, again, it's one of those things where it's such a toss-up. It could go either way. And I'll just go with the home team here. So give me the number 8 Lutheran Saints to win Sectional 59. Sectional 60, the Edinburgh sectional. I'm going with Edinburgh. Why? They're at home and better offensively than Jacksonville, the second best team in the bracket. Sectional 61, the West Washington sectional. I'm going with number 13, Christian Academy. They're 16-6 on the season with the top 5 scorer in 1A. Joshua Renfro averages 21 points per game, which is good enough for 5th in 1A, 22nd in the state. Sectional 62, the New Washington sectional, and I'm going with the Rising Sun Shiners. All teams are under 500, and the Shiners did beat New Washington, the only other team with 10-plus wins by 12 earlier in the year, so I think Rising Sun is the better team in that sectional. And then it's the only 1A sectional I want to highlight, Sectional 63, the Lagodi sectional, because you have number 2 Orleans, who is 20-3, second best defense in the state, first in 1A, who allow just 37 points per game. You've got number 4 Lagodi, who is 16-7. It's the 18th defense in the state, 7th in 1A, allowing 43 points per game. These two teams played earlier in February. That was a 4-overtime win for the Orleans Bulldogs. It's going to be close. I really want to go the upset here, but I think the Orleans resume is a little bit more impressive. They have the better defense. They're 10-0 versus 1A teams, 10-3 playing above their class. Lagodi is 8-4 versus 1A schools, and is 8-3 playing 2A and above. So it's close. Like I said, want to go Lagodi here, kind of, but I'll go Orleans. Give me the Bulldogs there. And then finally, the final sectional of the night, 42 minutes into the recording here. So we definitely beat our 64 sectionals in 64 minutes goal there. Sectional 64, the Wood Memorial sectional, and I'm going with number 9, Evansville Christian. They're 14-9, the best team in the sectional record-wise. They have the 5th best scorer in the state, Josiah Dunham, who averages 25 points per game, which is the best average in Class 1A. So there you go. I've given you all 64 sectionals. The final thing to do is to give you the state finals prediction for Class 1A, and I saved the best for last. I wish B. Scott was here to see this one because he loves all the kooky predictions that I have in this. I don't know if this is the kookiest one, but it definitely is up on the kooky scale. And that is, I'm going big upset here. I just kind of have a hunch. Now, granted, I've been feeling a little under the weather myself here lately, so maybe it's that. But I've got a hunch about number 10 Marquette Catholic. There's nothing about the teams at the top, save for maybe the Orleans defense, that really wows me. 1A, it's not that 1A feels weaker, but, you have some of the normal teams that you see at the top. North Davies is in 3A. Bar Reeve is 12-10, although they're always really tough. So it's kind of like, who do you want to put your faith in here? LCC is down, although I think they might be 2A this year. So it's really tough to pick a 1A state champion, and so, you know what? I'm going upset, and, I also, it's one of those things, too, if I would have picked Orleans, that would have been my 3rd straight number 2 team. as far as rankings go in the respective classes. And it's like the NCAA tournament. If you've ever filled, obviously, majority of you guys out there have filled out a bracket. Sometimes you fill out that bracket, you get to the end, and you're like, I have 3 seeds. Something doesn't look right here. And so you kind of have to go in and adjust. That's kind of how I felt, being like, what do I want to go with? Do I think 3 number 2 teams in their class heading into the tournament are going to all win their state championships? That didn't feel right. So you know what? I'm going with a team that's ranked number 10 going into the tournament. I love the tandem of Balling and Kobe, and in honor of the turmoil and chaos we saw in the girls' tournament, give me Marquette Catholic to win the 1A state title. So I've got 4A Penn, I've got 3A Mishawaka Marion, I've got 2A Linton Stockton, and finally 1A Marquette Catholic. Those are my picks. We'll see how it goes come tournament time. But that'll do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. Go like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go follow the YouTube channel. Follow the TikTok page as well. We love seeing your guys' comments and interactions over there. So go say hi, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that cool stuff. And remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever podcasts can be heard, you can hear the Crash Course Podcast. Coming up this weekend, tentatively, of course, it all depends on how B. Scott feels, but it's likely going to be, the IndyCar season starts this weekend, so we're going to try and put out an IndyCar preview. If not, it'll kind of change on the fly here, so be on the lookout for that. Also, we've got the conference tournaments coming up for college basketball. The NCAA tournament, a lot of basketball coming at you this month, and I hope you guys will be locked in. But until next week, everybody, have a good one.